Hello, this is Graham from letslearnthis.com. In this tutorial we're going to look at the if statement, so if and else and Elif, and we're also going to look at some conditionals. Just cast your mind back to when we were messing around with the random functions. And we're going to start there, I think, with some dice rolls. And if you remember in that tutorial we had the computer giving us some advice. Let's tighten that up and actually base the advice on the result of the dice roll rather than just a random choice between yes, no and perhaps. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is import the random class, and then we want to roll our dice. So let's say dice result as our variable name equals random .rand int. If you remember, this is the function within the random class that returns us a random number between and including the two numbers that we give it. As we're rolling a six-sided dice here, we go 1, 6, and then we can say, and then we want to get the computer to give us some advice on whether we should continue based on our luck. So what we do there is start with our if statement. So we can say if dice result, let's not say equals, let's say if dice result is less than 3, so in other words, if the dice rolls a 1 or a 2, then we want to do this. We want to say computer advice equals no. And let's just put the computer advice up here as well, just to prove that our if statement works. So perhaps we can say the computerized advice is nothing set when the program starts, and as it runs down the program here we're going to set it. Okay, so if the dice result is less than 3, then the computer advice is no, and then we can say else the computer advice equals yes, and then we might want to print it out just to tidy it up. So print you rolled a, and then we want to put the dice result in there, but remember this is an integer, so we need to convert it into a string in order to be able to print it out. So you've seen that before with the str function. So string dice result. Okay, then we continue printing out. I asked the computer if you should roll. Oh, that's not should roll there. Should roll again. It said. And then we want to put the computer advice on the end. Computer advice. Okay, so we don't need to put a string function around that because it's already a string. So what's going to happen here then? Well, hopefully it's going to start the program. It's going to put the result of this random number generation between 1 and 6 into the dice result variable. Then it's going to put the words nothing set into the computer advice variable, so that if our if statement doesn't work, then we know because we see nothing set appear on the end of our printed statement here. Then we're going to say if the dice result is less than 3, so 1 or 2, then the computer advice is no. Else it must be 3, 4, 5 or 6, the computer advice is yes. So there's some kind of intelligence here built in now. It's not just a random choice. Okay, and then we're going to print it out. So let's see it in action then. Let's F5 to run and save our program. We'll call it tutorial 7.py. Okay, so here we go. So you rolled a 2, I asked the computer if you should roll again. It said no. So that's exactly what we were expecting. The dice roll is less than 3, and so the computer advises us that we shouldn't roll again. And then it doesn't run any of the rest of the if statement here because it's already got its answer, you see. Okay then, so supposing we want to be a bit more accurate. So what we could do here is to let's comment out that region there, and we'll still keep this print line because we'll use the same thing. So we say dice result equals random dot grand int, and then our numbers 1 and 6 because that's how we want to roll. And then we'll say, we'll do the same thing, computer advice equals nothing set, just to prove that we are going to actually set something. And then we can say if dice result, let's say it's less than 2 this time, then we want to say computer advice equals no, and then we want to say else if, because we're going to have more than 2 conditions here, so we can't just use if and else, we have to use else if, which in Python is Elif. Sounds like some kind of elvish word or something. So Elif dice result, let's say less than 5, then the computer advice is going to equal perhaps. And finally we're going to say else, and we don't need to put anything there because if it's going to be less than 2, so it's 1, it's going to tell us not to continue. Okay, so if it's less than 5, so 2, 3 or 4, then it's going to say perhaps. And if it's 5 or 6, then it's going to get this far, so it's going to have to fall into this else. And so we're going to say computer advice equals yes. Okay, and then we're going to print it out. Well, our print line's just the same because we're using the same dice result variable and on the end the same computer advice variable. We've just got more accurate here in our advice that we're going to give. So here we've got our 3 conditions, whereas in our previous piece of code we only had 2. Okay then, so let's run it and see if it works. Okay, so here it's saying you rolled a 5. I asked the computer if you should roll again. It said yes. So you see here, it didn't get trapped by this if condition because it's not less than 2. It didn't get trapped by this else if condition because it's not less than 5. So it fell into this last else condition, and so it shows yes. Let's roll it again. Oh. You rolled a 1. I asked the computer if you should roll again. It said no. So exactly as we wanted. It's less than 2, so it goes into this if condition, and the computer advice is no. Okay, now these operators here, the less than, there's a number of different ones. Less than, greater than, less than or equal to, not equal to. Now, I was thinking about doing a tutorial that just covered those, but really it could be quite long and frankly quite boring. Now these are very important to learn, so what I'm going to do is introduce them as we go along and show you them in real examples where you can actually see them working, and I think it will stick a bit better and make sense. It's a bit of a dry subject to talk about without putting it into some sort of real context. Okay, so go and have a play with the if statement. You can put as many different conditions in there as you like using the elif. And the if statement is something very important to grasp and to make use of. I don't think really there's probably any complex program been written which doesn't make use of the if statement, and that's in any language. So it's very important and it's applicable across all programming languages. So have a play. Okay, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye bye.